like to call this meeting of the Carson City Historic Resources Commission for Thursday, May 10th, 2018 at the Community Center Sierra Room to order. It's 5:31-ish. Tamara, can you call roll?
Chairperson Drews.
Here.
Vice Chair Darney.
Here.
Commissioner Block. Commissioner Hayes.
Here.
Commissioner Schmitter.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Spilda.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Item B, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this public comment portion of the agenda. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to C for possible action, approval of minutes from the March 8th, 2018 meeting. Do I have a motion? Has everybody read them?
Yep. So moved.
Second? Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item D, modification of the agenda. Agenda management notice. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Board members, Hope, is there any modifications? We'll move to E, public hearing matters. E1, for possible action, HRC-18-040, to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding the request from Harvey and Terry Edwards for historic tax deferment on property zone single-family 6,000 SF6, located at 604 West Robinson Street, APN 003-275-03. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a picture on the board of the property. The property is listed in the historic survey. It is in good condition. I do believe it's in compliance with the development standards. I will mention to the HRC that there have been alterations to the windows and doors and the addition of a deck, but all those improvements were approved by the HRC. I am suggesting that you recommend approval of this deferment to the Board of Supervisors, and Mrs. Edwards is present.
Thank you, Hope. Any questions, comments from the board? Any discussion?
I have a question for you, Hope. It might be a legal question. I worked on this project several years ago, but with a different owner. And so I just need to make a note of that, or should I vote?
So you don't have any current involvement with that property? I think that's fine.
Is there any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval on the recommendation of the Board of Supervisors to approve HRC 18-040, the request for historical tax deferment on property zone single-family 6,000 located at 604 West Robinson Street, APN 003-275-03. The subject approval is based on the finding that the property is general conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines for rehabilitation, Carson City Historic District guidelines, and with Historic Resources Commission policies.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item is E2 for possible action, HRC-18-058, to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding request from Ronald and Catherine Polistrini for historic tax deferment on property zone single-family 6,000 SF6, located at 707 West Robinson Street, APN 003-242-04. Hope.
As the chair said, this is a request for the historic tax deferment. The property is listed on the historic survey. It is in good condition. I do want to talk about the compatible historic character and compliance with the HRC guidelines. If you are able to go by the site, you'll see the wooden gate that goes to the porch is still in place. You had rejected that wooden gate, and you had later approved a wrought iron gate onto that porch. I spoke to the applicant for this tax deferment, who, by the way, is out of town this evening and was not able to attend the meeting. She explained that they had been renting the home when they put in the wooden gate. They weren't able to have, the landlord wasn't willing to replace the wooden gate with the wrought iron gate. They now own the property, and they will put in the wrought iron gate. I would have potentially delayed this application or had a different recommendation, but if this deferment does not get approved by the board next month, then they lose a year on the deferment. And my feeling is this is a historic building. I mean, no doubt. It contributes to the district, and I think the issue with the gate is something that needs to be addressed, but not as part of this request for a deferment. Thank you.
Thanks, Hope. Can we put a condition on here that we see something moving in that direction within the next month?
I don't think we can tie it to the tax deferment, but what I can do is we can restart the code enforcement. The code enforcement was in place with the wooden gate, and then they got approval of the wrought iron. So right now they're out of compliance with the HRC approval, and I think that's the straightforward avenue.
Okay, thanks. Any other commission questions, comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of HRC 18-0-058, request for historical tax deferment on property zone single-family 6,000, located at 707 West Robinson Street, APN 003-275-04, subject to approval as written by staff.
The motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Hope. Next item is E3 for possible action, HRC-18-069, to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding a request from Holly Ann Fant for an historic tax deferment on property zoned residential office, RO, located at 406 North Nevada Street, APN 003-226-03. Hope.
Thank you. This property is in the historic survey. The property is in good condition, and it is compatible with the historic character, and I find it to be in compliance with the HRC guidelines. The new property owner, Andy Fant, is present, and I've already met with her and talked to her about some of her plans to restore the property, so it's very exciting, although that's a little separate from the tax deferment, but I will mention she is present, and I am recommending that you recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Hope. Are there any questions for the board?
I just want to make a comment that I am currently under contract to do work on this project, so I will not be voting.
Welcome to the district, Ann, and I'll entertain, is there any public comment? I will entertain a motion.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of HRC 18-069, a request for historical tax deferment on property zone residential office located at 406 North Nevada Street, APN 003-226-03. The subject approval is based on the findings that the property is in general conformance with the Secretary of Interior's standards and guidelines for rehabilitation, Carson City Historic District guidelines, and with Historic Resources Commission policies.
The motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. E4, to make a recommendation for possible action, HRC-18-073, to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding requests from Carson McFadden for historic tax deferment on property zoned single-family 6,000 SF6, located at 302 Thompson Street, APN 003-242-02. Hope.
Again, this property is listed in the historic survey. It's in good condition. I find that it's compatible with the historic character and in compliance with the HRC guidelines. If you were able to go by the site, you saw a very large addition, but the addition has not compromised either the front or the side facades which face the streets. So I am recommending that you recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors. I don't know if Carson McFadden is here. Are you Carson McFadden? No, no, that's Beth Ellis, sorry. Okay, Carson McFadden is not present. She asked if she needed to attend, and I told her I didn't think it would be controversial.
Thank you, Hope. Is there any commission member questions, discussion? Are there any public comments on this item? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval of HRC 18-073, a request for historical tax deferment on property zoned single-family 6,000, located at 302 Thompson Street, APN 003-13331. The subject approval is based on the findings that the property is in general conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines for rehabilitation, Carson City Historic District guidelines, and with Historic Resource Commission policies.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're just moving right along. Item E5 for possible action, HRC-18-060, to consider requests from the Children's Museum to remodel the outdoor space along Carson Street on property zone public community, PC, located at 813 North Carson Street, APN 002-164-01. Hope.
The applicant is proposing to remove existing fencing, concrete slabs, planters, and landscaping that are currently in the front of the building, and to construct a 6-foot-tall wrought iron fence, and to make modifications to the space between the building to accommodate a play area and display area. No modifications to the building are proposed. I consider that the play equipment and display equipment will be somewhat temporary in nature, and so I haven't reviewed those specifically. I focused more on the landscaping and the fencing. Section 5.24 provides guidelines for fencing, saying no fence shall be constructed which adversely affects the primary views of any building. The applicant is proposing a wrought iron fence. Because the fence is see-through, I think we are in compliance with the guidelines for 5.24, but you'll see that I have included a condition that other than the signage that's called out on the plans, no additional signage should be installed on this fence. So I don't want the fence to suddenly have a lot of banners on it, and that would then cause the fence to start blocking the view of the building. The fence should not be on the right-of-way. The right-of-way is 1 foot behind the sidewalk, so the engineering staff did point that out. So when they decide on the placement of the fence, and the plans aren't real specific on that, it should be off the right-of-way. But if you've been to the site, you'll see that means it will line up with the building to the south. So I do believe that the wrought iron fence, which is proposed to be painted black, 6 foot tall, will be compatible with the context of the historic district. In terms of the landscaping, 5.25 provides the guidelines for landscape elements. You'll see the applicant submitted a photograph of the original building, and you'll see that the landscaping that's in place right now today was not there. So this is not original landscaping. It's been modified, so there is no historic landscaping to protect and preserve. given that I find the modifications consistent with the guidelines on landscape elements. Again, because the placement of the fence can be seen through, the play equipment and display items will be somewhat temporary in nature. Nothing is going to touch the building itself. I don't find that this application will compromise the historic character of this property, and I am recommending approval. Beth Ellis, the Executive Director of the museum, is present, and she can introduce her team, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Hope. Beth?
Can I ask Hope a question?
Sure.
I think I'll just address it to you here. In reading this, the engineering division comments, besides saying set it back 18 inches from the sidewalk, which deals with that one, says that the fence can be up to 4 feet tall. So you didn't talk about that discrepancy.
The height restrictions that they quoted from is for residential zoning districts. This is a public zoning district, and there's no mandated setbacks in the public zoning district. The setback's a derivative of the special use permit, and this application will be subject to a special use permit because it's in the public zoning district. I put that in the conditions of approval. And so the Planning Commission may choose to limit the height of the fence, but the height isn't prescriptively limited based on a setback requirement.
Beth, do you want to come up and answer any questions? You need to introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you very much. My name is Beth Ellis, the Executive Director of the Children's Museum, and we're very excited about this project. I would like to also invite, it's my Crimes in Action, it's Casey Gillis, our board president, Kristen Lewis, also a member of our board, and JP Coppola. Say your last name? Coppola. I'm working on it. You guys know him. Who is also here to answer questions that you might have regarding this project.
Hey.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I have a question. Is the front gate going to be open and available for people to enter the building on the front? Or is that going to be closed or changed?
The gate will be able to be opened. However, what we are proposed to do is on the side, the left side where our parking is now, that there will actually be an entrance on that side into the museum. So as patrons come into the museum, they'll walk through this outdoor space, and then they will enter into the museum
I don't see the...
via the stairs.
On the left.
It's on
No.
the left.
Yeah. I guess it's not a clear path to me from the
No.
gate to the
Not from this
entrance.
perspective.
Ask Hope to put a plan up.
If you look in your packet on page A2 of the plan set, A1,
Actually,
right,
Yeah,
right,
A1
A1 showing
shows the
both
front.
gates. It has the patio in blue in the front, and you can see the 2 gates.
Is there a reason why you wanted to put a fence across the front of the building?
The reason that we have considered putting a fence across the front is, there's quite a few different ones. Number one, right now, we do get a lot of transient populations that travel through our area, and on any given morning, we find evidence of them having been in the front of the museum via cigarette butts and trash and so on and so forth. So we would like to stop that flow from coming through the museum on off hours. Also, as a safety precaution for children, our population, our customers are very small, young children, and from entering the museum to come down and have a fence there gives a more safer boundary space for them. And also with groups that we have, school groups, field trips, it gives them a nice seating area in a protected somewhat space in front of the museum.
I have a question. Is there any particular reason it needs to be 6 feet? Can't 4 feet take care of the issues that you're just
It's a
listed?
very good question. We've kind of gone back and forth about that. The 6-foot was as an added protection to the museum to prevent people from just stepping right on over, whereas a 4-foot might still allow that protection for people to just step right on over and come into that space and use it for other activities when the museum's not open.
The only real reason I bring that up is because from the street, I walked around and imagined that, and it seemed to me that a 6-foot kind of changed the atmosphere of it. Whereas a 4-foot, where you can look, as you're walking by, you can look over, still is tall enough to not be convenient for anybody to go over, especially if it's an open picket. I think the 6-foot is a bit tall for the proximity to the street and the size and the space.
It looks like, on page A2, it looks like the grade's about it's 510 to the first floor, to that landing. Is that right, John?
My name's John Kopelos. I'm the architect for the project. That's a good point. The actual finished floor of the building and the doors to it are pretty close to 6 foot off the grade.
Well, what I was wondering is, could we go down to 5.5 feet, bring it just below that landing and
I think so, yeah.
get that?
One of the things
that
we'd
helps.
like to do, though, is where the front gates are, we'd like to put some kind of a curve in there. And if we could keep the main fence at whatever height is decided today, but still allow that curve. And then at the corner, we also raise that a bit, and we're trying to put the signage there.
So I have a problem with the curve.
Okay?
I understand why you're doing it, because you're picking up that fan,
Right.
but I want to be able to see that whole entablature. And if you just had posts, those 3 posts between the gates, for me, that's not distracting from the entrance, which is really important. And then the cutaways on the side, I'm confused about that too. Are those,
I'm following you.
is that a straight line? Are you meeting the corners at a?
We're following the corners of the existing fence that's there right now. I mean, there are certain city codes related to sight lines at the corner. So they cut that
Okay.
corner, and we're just.
All right, so we already have a distraction there. So this is my personal feeling. It's not really a true fan on the top of your gate.
True.
So I would like to see that is the primary view. That's one of the most important character defining features of this building. And so if we are going to have a fence, a tall fence, that should stand out. So just picking up the entablature, the 3 parts of between the doors.
You don't have any other drawings that we submitted? But you don't have them. You don't have them electronic. Yeah, I do.
Posts here that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
See how they
page
just, we're almost
Can't quite
there.
follow what.
maybe this one here would be
A2.
just the linkage of the.
Yeah, really not quite
hitches.
following what.
So it'd be these two, maybe, actually, I think.
Just
that would
bulk
be
them up
enlarged
a little bit.
I think,
Because they need to.
I think what Michelle's saying on A2,
Yeah.
if we just go with a straight fence,
Oh,
and the corner, the 2 corner posts for the gate, and the center post.
Whole door.
yeah. I don't think we'll put a center post in there.
No, just a.
What the
Okay,
idea
yeah.
is
The meeting
that they actually have a parking space off of Carson Street, and there's opportunity to bring food trucks there.
Okay.
And there'll be times when Carson Street is closed for various events, and we propose to fully swing those gates
Okay.
open and use the whole space for those types of events. So that's the concept with those gates.
Yeah. So you're just thinking go with a flat gate, not the arch?
Well, is that the opinion of the rest of the committee? I mean,
I agree that the posts that flank the gates ought to have a little more meat,
okay.
maybe twice that thick or
Okay, all right.
size-wise, so that they, from the rest of the fence, say,
You wanna
I'm the
do
middle,
that
I'm
as
the
a
entry.
Design as opposed to an arch.
Yeah, so that when you go by, you can see
Yeah.
immediately that's
Okay.
that's an opening for you to
Gotcha.
pedestrian.
Yeah, I think we can do that. I don't see a problem doing that.
And I don't have an issue with the clip corners because the sidewalk currently has a 45-degree bevel on that. And in the past, there was a big bush there, and it was a hazard coming in and off that corner because you couldn't see traffic coming.
The trees are going to be left in,
The 2 trees. All the landscaping up against the building is going to be removed.
So regardless of how tall it finally is, in the interest of, I guess, keeping folks out on and off hours comes to mind first, unless some kid's a budding pole vaulter, I think, and you build the right kind of fence that you can't climb it easily. It should do the job. It would do the job at 4 feet probably if it weren't easily climbable. But in terms of keeping folks out in the off hours, maybe a little higher, maybe a little bit down, as we mentioned here, so that's clearly below the main entrance view from the street. And the other thing I was just thinking is, think about what's running along the top of that thing. If you're really trying to discourage folks from going inside and off hours.
To picket it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to use, razor wire, so that would kind of be unattractive. But
We do have
but something that's pretty,
on A2.
I mean, think about, it should be as pointy and impractical to go over as possible, yeah. So, I see little points there. I mean, I'm just saying, those are key to me if you're really gonna make this work.
We're planning on doing it.
Even 6 feet, if I'm motivated and it's just a
Yeah.
flat fence, I could do
We're
it.
planning on doing a picket over the top. But I like the idea of compromise a little bit above 4, because with a picket on it, at least it's high enough above short kids that there isn't going to be an issue from that side as well. Yeah, it's kind of a tricky. I mean, we've got one side of the fence where we want to do one thing.
Yeah, I'm
The other
kind
side
of
the
agreeing,
fence.
if it's 4 foot, that there's more easier places to sleep.
Yeah,
I would go with 5.
just introduce yourself.
If I could say something, my name's Casey Gillis. I'm the president of the board right now at the museum, but I was a educator here in Carson until I retired last year. In fact, I had your son at Bordewick. The reason for the height of the fence is right now the museum has no area where parents can take their children outside. And we plan to landscape this in kind of an interactive, natural way so they can be outside. But we also really want to keep whatever height we need because, okay, the parents are always there with their grandparents, with their children. But somebody turns around to look at their phone and that, having worked in school playgrounds for so many years, I want to make sure that while mom's on the phone over here, somebody isn't climbing that fence and getting to Carson Street because this is something we want to offer parents, and we think people coming down the street, instead of all the old work and the bricks and concrete that's sticking up right now and is a hazard, if they see children out there with some natural landscaping and some natural, not playground equipment, but just natural interactive equipment, it'll be very inviting. But like I say, with young kids out there, because it's the first time we've been able to offer an outdoor space, we really want to also make sure those kids are safe. So that was the reason we started at the height we did. Thank you.
Just to comment on that, I mean, the height isn't everything, but the way it's drawn with these tall wrought iron pieces and nothing in between them, unless you can wedge your shoe in there and climb that away, which that's one way to do it. I mean, you're not making it easily climbable. Maybe it's a challenge, therefore, to some kids. So I see the problem. But I think coming down a little bit from 6 feet for other reasons, we still can make an effective fence with nice pointy things on the top,
So I've heard 5 feet, I think I said 5.5. The landing is according to this, at 5.10. So
somewhere in there. So
somewhere between those is probably where we want it. What's the board consensus on that?
I think 5 feet is a
think 5?
good
Yeah, well,
a
5
good
feet
compromise for everyone.
work, I think. I mean, our clients, the top of the spikes will be at 5.
Whole thing should be at 5.
Yeah, you want it, now, right now, we've set the top of the fence, our proposal was 6 foot to the top of the spikes. So now we'll go to 5 foot to the top of the spikes.
Well, I was thinking just the railing, which is the most prominent piece that you want to line up with the floor,
Yeah. They're usually 6 inches, 4 inches below. The spikes are usually 4, maybe 4 inches higher, maybe 6. We'll use whatever's standard.
That's how you want to probably word it, is an average of 5 feet based on because standard fence is not 5'6". It's either 4 or 5 or 6. So, I mean, yeah. And that may or may not include the pickets. It might just be the top railing. I don't know the, fence company standards.
I think it's top.
I'd make it like a nominal 5 foot. That way if it's 5 foot 2.5, we won't complain.
Yeah. If you look at the call letters, I guess the other question is, we've got, looks like an 8-foot fence along the north side.
Bring everything down a foot?
Do we want to drop that a foot too?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd try and keep everything down a foot then, if that's okay.
Okay.
And then we'll just beef up the posts at the gates, and we'll go straight across the gates.
Yeah, I just think as you're coming down Carson Street, you don't want to see that just as appear to be just a long fence. You want to see the gate.
Yeah.
That's all.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that'd be it. It works well with the entry there, especially the way you've got it set up. So, any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment?
Well, I had a couple comments, questions, I guess. Hope addressed one of them with engineering and their 4 foot. As long as that doesn't become a condition.
It's not in here.
Oh, I saw it as one of,
in the conditions of approval.
oh, it was just a comment in here?
It was in the engineering memo.
Yeah, okay, those are just comments, because the other one was the fire department, and it just wasn't very accurate. I didn't know where that came from. Both the fire department and the building department have been by there, and they've determined that the building has 3 exits, and the front door is not one of them.
Condition number 9 is what you may be referring to from the fire department. It says the gate on Carson Street must be the same width as the front door to the museum or consistent with an exit plan that calculates the required width consistent with fire code. It's on page 2 of the staff report.
Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, there you go. So those aren't really part of the,
No. The conditions of approval on page 2 are the conditions that
Okay, I
the staff is recommending that the HRC incorporate. And then the HRC has also articulated some other conditions that I'll articulate for the benefit of the record before they vote.
see, both 9 and 10, when we sit down with the fire department, we don't want to use that gate on Carson Street as the exit. We want to use the side one that's on Ann Street, is it? Yeah. So, I mean, and nobody from the fire department has talked to us about this, but this is a condition in here.
Okay, the 2 conditions you're questioning are number 9 and 10 or 10 and 11?
9 and 10, and to be honest with you, we'd be happy to work with the fire department on both of those.
Okay, on 9 and 10, I'll recommend that we add the clause to each of those that says, or consistent, or as approved by the fire marshal. It will give the applicant the opportunity to discuss it with the fire marshal and work through that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
From
I agree with
your
John.
drawings, John, it looks like you complied with 9 as it is. Those look like they're actually, the gate looks wider than the 2 front
Yeah,
doors.
that's true, but
And all you'd need is
they
the
want
panic.
us to put panic.
I'm not sure what,
Yeah, that, like you said, I don't think that front door is an exit,
It
a
isn't.
legal exit, so you're not exiting out that front gate.
Yeah.
There'll just be the exiting of children in the yard.
Within the play area.
And then a 3-foot gate's going to be sufficient. So I don't see where number 9 is really kind of outside the purview of the fire code to make it the same width as the front doors. That's not in any code that I'm aware of.
I think that I did ask both building and fire for input, and as the applicants know, that was one of my first concerns, was the exiting of that building and the fencing in front of an exit of the building. This is input we received from them, so I don't want to, at this point, question their interpretation of the code. I think if we include language to the effect that says, or approved by the fire marshal, it gives them the opportunity to work through it.
Oh, that works fine. That's fine.
That way you can go have your own fight with him.
He's already been to the site, so I can't figure out where this came from.
They came there.
Yeah, both them and building have come to the site. They saw the 3 exits. So I don't know. I know that the playground may need 2 exits. And I mean, we'll work with them on that. We do have the opportunity on the back alley that's between the motel and the museum that there's a gate and a way to exit there if need be. So there's a gate there now. We may just need to put hardware on it. Okay, well, if those two conditions can be modified like Hope said, then we're done unless there are any other questions.
Are there any other questions, comments? Hope, do you want to kind of summarize?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the benefit of the record, I think what I've heard from the commission is that the curve on the front gate is to be eliminated. The 3 posts that are part of the front gate are to be more substantial. The height of the fence is to be reduced.
2 posts.
Oh, 2 posts. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, say that again.
The one in the middle is just where the 2 gates meet.
Okay, I get it. So we'll start from the top. The front, for the benefit of the record, that the curve on the front gate is to be eliminated. The 2 posts that are part of the front gate are to be more substantial. The height of the fence is to be reduced to 5 feet to the top of the pickets. The fence portion that's shown as 8 feet on the plans is to be reduced to 7 feet at the corner of the property. And for conditions 9 and 10, the clause "or as approved by the fire marshal" will be added to each of those conditions.
Thank you, Hope. Any other questions from the commission? In which case, I'll entertain a motion, and I think we can go with the recommended motion, and I think Hope has clarified the conditions. Has the applicant read all the conditions and concur with everything except 9 and 10 at this point?
Yes, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to move to approve HRC 18-060, a request to remodel outdoor space along Carson Street on property zone Public Community PC, located at 813 North Carson Street, APN 002-16401, based on the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report, Hope Sullivan's additional comments that were just stated, and the standards and guidelines for rehabilitation, Carson City Historic District guidelines, and consistent with the Historic Resources Commission policies.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Beth, Casey, John.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you, Hope.
Thank you very much, and when we have it done, we'll invite you down for the open house.
Sounds good.
Cool. I'll bring the grandkids. Next item, E6, for possible action, HRC-18-064, to consider a request from David Moores to build a new house on property-zoned residential office, RO, located at 213 South Nevada Street, APN 003-114-08. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board, or the commission may recall on January 11, 2018, the HRC approved a request to demolish this existing building that's in the photograph based on it not being eligible for the National Register. You attached conditions to that approval of demolition stating that the applicant needed to have all approvals for a new home prior to demolishing this building. The applicant now is in to construct a new home on the property. Section 5.27 of the guidelines provide the guidelines for new construction. It speaks to scale and massing, shape, setback, site elements, which essentially is the grading, materials, windows and doors, details and other elements in the floor elevations. At the beginning of these guidelines, it states new construction should look new and reflect the technology, building materials, and design ideas of the present era. It also states that new construction needs to be compatible and respectful of the historic building stock that surrounds it, so that visual conflict and confusion are avoided. In terms of materials, it says that exterior siding should reflect the prevailing style of the neighborhood. In terms of windows and doors, it states that it should reflect the style of the building design and the predominant patterns found in the existing buildings in the area. In the guidelines, 5.18.2 discusses the stone veneer as part of a contemporary construction. This one's hard. This is, in my opinion, an unusual site, I'll say. I have up on the board the boundaries of the district. What you'll see is this site and the garage, which the garage is actually on a separate piece of property, are surrounded by a parking lot. They're not surrounded by buildings. Across the street, we have a vacant lot, a lot with a sort of ranch-style building that was built in the 1940s. If you go to the south, you have another vacant lot, and we're no longer in the district when we get to the south. The building that was built in the 1940s, that's across the street, it's cute. It's a small cottage. It could emulate this, but when you're on the site, at least this was my perception, there was nothing that clearly was the cue for the design. This design is very modern. This may not work, but it also may work because it's utilizing original or real stone, and it has pretty much a design that's similar to what's been there, albeit you all determined that wasn't a contributing building to the district. This is a hard one because I haven't dealt with new construction in the district that's so isolated. Because this is so isolated, I did recommend approval, but and the Moores are present, and they're the property owners. They've been before you 3 times now, I think. Is that right? And so I'll look forward to hearing the commission's discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. David, do you want to come up and answer questions? Hope's right. This is really different. I mean, what was there was interesting. This is certainly interesting. We're following that same path. So I'll open it up to commission members.
Hope, can you read me back again the previous conditions that we had laid on as far as the architecture and the compliance with compatible with the neighborhood?
Those aren't conditions. I was reading directly from the guidelines, and what the guidelines say, and the 3 items that I spoke specifically to, is that new construction should look new and reflect the technology, building materials, and design ideas of the present era. I also read new construction needs to be compatible and respectful of the historic building stock that surrounds it, so that visual conflict and confusion are avoided. And third, that the exterior siding should reflect the prevailing style of the neighborhood.
Given those comments, as an architect, this I see is compatible to those comments. I mean, I noticed the late comment from Jed Block about the brick in the neighborhood. And yes, there is a lot of brick, there is some stone. But the point here, because of the verbiage of what you just read, it's not about mimicking what's in the neighborhood. It's not about copying what's in the neighborhood. It's about defining a difference with this, but yet respecting what's in the neighborhood. So trying to make a historic shape, a gable end or something like that is not necessarily what the goal here is. It's really about, does it fit, but yet is it still, if it's a modern design, which this is it compatible with the neighborhood and some of the things around it? And from my perspective, I think most of it is.
I would just have one comment in terms of being compatible and so on. The only thing that jumps out at me, what comes to mind first is the notion of stucco. There are some stucco examples. I mean, the Mark Twain house on Division there, the law firm house, is a very nicely done stucco that clearly wasn't the original coating, and it was there that way when I first saw the historic district. So I don't know when that happened, but it's still really unusual material, generally speaking, across the whole district. You know, the stone. You know, we have a lot of stones and bricks and this and that. I'm easier with that side of things, but stucco, do we really have to do stucco? Could there be some kind of wood element with stone?
If it was a larger scale, I'd probably agree completely with that. Stucco, in this case, is in small areas on a small scale project, and it's going to hold up, as opposed to the only other, he could do a vertical board and bat or a shiplap siding, which I don't think the shiplap would be compatible to this style of design. Those are all more Western and earlier concepts. This, I think, because of the stone, what I'd like to see with the stone, however, is a little more articulation with some of the details of the stone, such as the separation between the lower rock that wraps the building and the stucco. I'd like to see a reveal or a water table.
There's a water there
that would stick out. Little things like that would not just be a covering of rock and something like that. Maybe the same kind of a detail at the top of the cap of the chimney. Just those kind of things that are more masonry stylistic that we all kind of expect to see. But otherwise, I like it.
Just a note on the north and south elevation, we're calling for veneer stone wainscot. On the west and east elevation, we actually call that fieldstone wainscot. I just want to make sure we're consistent, and we say that it's local, natural, uncut. I just want to make sure that all four elevations have the same.
And I'm tying it in with the landscape also. It's all the same type. The planter boxes that are be in the yard, and I plan on doing pretty much a high desert landscape, but with designated planters, stone planters. But the one house or building down there that stuck out to me that was all a block square, all stucco, was I think it's a attorney office, 2-story. It's totally stucco. And it's real close there. And, the Red Rock Dental Building is stone. I mean, there's a lot of examples. There's a whole bunch of stucco down there in a lot of places. But I just, just looking around, I thought we kind of matched with what was going on. It's a little different, but.
And I like the idea that we're carrying the double hung windows that are in the district into this. They're not 6/6 or anything like that, but the simple double hungs carry over nicely. On the plan set that we stamp, Hope, could we just make sure that on the north and south elevations, we correct that to fieldstone, just in case?
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So I have a question on that. Wouldn't we prefer, since in your write-up you discussed of being more postmodern, dating more to the construction of the existing building, wouldn't we want to see veneer there instead of full stone? Because that's really, it's heavier. And then also, if we're going with the postmodern, I liked how you took your roof line and tilted it, so at least you're maintaining that.
Well, shed roofs have been around for a long, long time.
So around the stone around the door, I'm not sure how necessary that is.
It's not.
Okay. Oh, that's just my opinion, sorry.
No, it's really not necessary. I mean, it's,
Let me ask you a question about that, now that you point that out. And this is just an opinion for consideration for you. Maybe that would be a place to change the stone type, or either go to more of a symmetrical, like a square stone, or a brick that would be totally different than the rock that's everywhere else, because that's the front door.
What if we make the sills?
The what?
The windows?
Oh, make it a granite,
Yeah.
something like that, where it would, be different than all of the blend of the stone and be just the front door.
I'd rather see the windowsills in the same stone as the bottom myself, but
Sills, I know what they are. They're kind of a granite looking, of the same material. I would love to see
pretty
that.
much what I want to use in the whole project is slide mountain granite. I mean, it's readily available. I've used it for a lot of years.
But that would be, it's a little more formal at that door rather than just a random stone. That's just an idea.
Yeah. I'm not real favor of squares myself. I've been doing masonry for a long time, but yeah, the square stuff doesn't catch my eye. I mean,
I'm not only brought that up as a suggestion of, picking one off the
no,
shelf,
it's
but yeah.
fine.
I think what she was trying to get at is, after a while, the stone becomes kind of redundant. As you look around it, maybe it deserves a little break where the entrance is.
It's very different for the historic district, so that, in a way, that's kind of good. It'll stand out as a different type of architecture.
Well, as it being commercial and residential, it, who knows how long we're going to be here, so it could revert to commercial also.
Yeah, and it's on that transition of residential to commercial properties anyway, that edge of town, so. If you're going to build something modern in the district, this is a good place to put it.
Well, we have no neighbors, so, except, entrance and exit.
Are there any other commission member questions or comments?
I have a question, Mr. Chair, for Commissioner Durney. Commissioner Durney, you were talking about more detail with the stone, and Mr. Moore's indicated that's what he planned to do. I didn't really get wording to that effect.
I was specifically talking about where the top of the wainscot band along the bottom meets the stucco.
Okay.
There needs to be a what we call a water table, which
Okay.
is a stone row that sticks out a little further so the
There'll be a
water runs
reveal
off.
there, and it'll actually be cut, and the other stuff is field.
I'm Don Morris, so I kind of want to know in English what he's saying.
No, there's instead of at the top of the,
Because you guys
at the top of
know-
at the top of the wainscot, there's a formal ledge, I guess is the best way to describe it, just a formal ledge across the top.
Okay,
That's all.
all right. Okay.
I think I'm only defining that because in the drawing here, it's sometimes these drawings, you can't see those kind of details. So.
And Mr. Chair, I think I heard you say that we need to be sure that all 4 elevations are using the real stone and not a veneer. But then I heard other comments on that, so I'm not sure where the commission is on that.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Pope. I don't think real stone's the issue because that becomes a huge structural issue as far as weight. But there is veneer stone that mimics the field stones that are in the neighborhood that are acceptable. We've used them quite a bit.
The only problem is with the man-made stone is in this environment, it defaces after a few years, after 10, 15 years, where the real stone does not. I mean, it.
Oh, sure. If you want to use real stone, I have no issue with that. I was just
I'm
suggesting that that's not
absolutely
necessarily for us a requirement.
Yeah.
So all 4 elevations? All 4 elevations will utilize real stone?
Yes, ma'am.
the same.
Yeah, so we'll just make a note of it on the plans. And
Yeah, absolutely.
is there any public comment on this item? Once again, this is unique, and it's replacing a unique building. It's bringing that same style back with a different pitch or a
A
different,
little more livable.
yeah. So it's
That house is there right now
and
is kind of,
Hope, do we need to? Jed's comments are just part of a submission.
Jed's comments are part of the record. They were provided to you under late material, and the clerk has a copy of those.
Okay, great. And I think we kind of discussed his alternatives as well. So, there's no public comment. I will entertain a motion.
I'd just like to say, I appreciate all your hard work. I mean, it's fun, actually. I mean, I've been looking at that building a long time, and this is fascinating, and a step forward.
well, it took
Let's
my
face
eye up
it,
as-
big step.
I tried to buy it a year before I bought it, but he was a little more difficult than I thought.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll do it now that I found it. I move to approve HRC-18-064, a request from David and Dawn Moores to construct a 1,075 square foot home on property zone residential office RO located at 213 South Nevada Street, APN 003-114-08, based on the finding of consistency with the design guidelines and subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second? Or third?
You picked him. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your
Thank you.
your work on this, David.
It's also nice, it's a nice size. Thank you, guys.
Next item is F, staff reports. Discussion only.
Boy.
Hope?
I have nothing. I haven't, SHPO's office is still waiting for their funding approval for the forum conference in Des Moines. So as soon as I hear back from that, I'll contact the 5 people who indicated interest in attending, and we'll look at your calendar and dates and see if we can make that work. Otherwise, I don't have a report. I did not bring the administrative approval count with me.
Okay. Commission member comments or reports?
I've got one. I don't know if you want to say something about Casey Otto, but I did get a call from him the other day to talk about what we had gone through as far as his electrical car station cover, and he acknowledged that he agrees with putting the bucket over the thing, and he's going to go get a couple and hang them and hope he's going to send you a photo and see if that kind of is what we were concurring with, and he said it was a fine idea, so life is good. Thank you.
Life is good. I think one of the administrative approvals we did was the Abe Curry building that we just got the tax deferment on. There's a couple of spruce trees out in front that were not part of the original landscaping, and gave the applicant approval to take those out. It'll open that property up a lot, and I understand she's looking at putting the cupola back on and maybe the front porch, so.
I'll make a comment on that. Yes, the owner is here in the room, and we're going to do a kind of a 3-phase project. The first one's going to be strictly interior upgrades of electricity and modern plumbing and gas and things like that, which won't come to this board. After that, we're going to do some exterior modifications, try to replace and mimic a trellis type awnings in the front that had been there at one point. There's also a cupola up on the roof that had been taken out for probably structural and failures in the past that we're going to try to mimic. A lot of it's going to be based on her research of finding reasonable photographs so we can get some idea of accuracy. But other than that, the building is in fine condition and really requires not much in the way of upkeep and fixing, just trying to get some of the stuff back that has been lost. So you'll see that coming to this board.
Thanks for the update and congratulations. I just had a question, Hope. There's some kind of a modular structure. Looks like it's maybe 5 by 8, something like that, on the northeast corner of Musser and Mountain, Phil Hersey's property, the one that we approved the garage on. He's now got some kind of a temporary something going up with aluminum sections and.
I'll check on it.
Did you check that out? Okay, any other commissioners?
The status of Dr. Yen's solar?
Dr. Yen was not able to get the supplemental information that the commission required from Tesla or Solar City. I forget which one. They're changing names a little bit. But anyway, so she said since she didn't have the additional information that the commission had requested to please continue her item, and she'd do it in the summer. Rather than putting on your agenda for a continuation, in fairness to all the neighbors, because we've continued about probably 6 months now, I'll just renotice in the summer, and that way the neighbors are notified.
Great. Future agenda items. Any from the commission? Could you make sure that Ria's replacement sends the agenda to me before it gets out?
Yes.
Or to the chairman? Any other questions, comments, future items?
I'd like to make one note. I don't think we can replace Ria. I just want to make a comment that she put in a good service to the city and worked with her for years, and we're going to miss her, and she's going to be difficult to replace.
I'm going to give Hope some direction that for next year's preservation awards. I am now the oldest continuing member of this commission. Ria was there when I started, so she will be tough to replace. G, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this public comment portion of the agenda. Is there any additional public comment?
Hey y'all, I'm Andy Fant, and I am the thrilled, proud owner of the Curry House. And I brought you some pictures so that you can start to share and some exhibits on the renovation of the Curry House, if I may approach.
Sure. And I've given Rob some contacts at the museum that may have.
Yeah, so that is the switch plate, because we are going from modern switching back to the authentic push buttons. I'm a historical provider, and they actually have different switches. And they exhibit to the honors.
Michelle, can you turn on your mic so it picks up Andy's voice? Thank you.
Hey y'all. So I'm sending you a double gang switch plate. I'm a silver girl, so everything in the house is going to be polished silver. I am replacing all of the old electrical that was actually commercial grade but not residential grade, so the house is coming back as my primary home. It's my forever house. I'm going to live there forever. Push button switches with dimmers, and I also brought you a picture to show you the chandelier that's going in the dining room. So, welcome to the journey. I have a website if you kind of want to see what the house looked like on the day between I bought it and the renovation work start. It's www.aimcurryhouse.com. And it was a 3D photographer that came in and took a rendering of every room.
That's cool.
You can take a dollhouse tour. We did a drone flyover with the facility of line. So come on to the journey. Welcome you along. Thanks for all the support.
thank you for coming to Carson and taking care of one of our premier historic properties. You'll have it. Any other public comment? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. 6:35.